Hello, welcome to the August 24th meeting of the Human Rights and Relations Commission. We are meeting in person at Edina City Hall, but the following participants are joining us remotely via WebEx. Commissioners Ross, Edwards, Ismail, Guadarrama, and Siebel. To the commissioners who are joining us via WebEx, please remember to keep your camera on throughout the duration of the meeting. It's required by Minnesota statute. We also ask you not to use the chat function unless you're having technology problems. Before we begin, I'd like to cover a few things for those listening or watching online. The public has 3 ways to view the meeting tonight. They can watch live stream on the city's YouTube channel, listen via phone using the WebEx call-in number, or attend the meeting in person here at City Hall. To participate in the community comment, residents must attend our meeting in person. Residents also have the option of submitting a commission correspondence form online. The city is committed to hearing and receiving your input on matters. The public can send in comments to the City Council or HRRC through the council correspondence web form on the city website. The recording of the meeting will also be available to watch on the city's website tomorrow. Go to Watch a Meeting link under the I Want To tab. We will have roll call votes for each motion this evening as well as for adjournment. I will ask fellow Kareem to call roll after each motion. I will repeat the motion for the record before we vote and who made and seconded. Thanks in advance for your patience as we work to conduct these meetings hybridly using different software types and people participating from their homes. We hope there will not be any issues, but please be assured that we will continue the meeting as best we can if there are glitches. Thank you everyone for tonight, for your interest and our work in the city. Let's get started. Okay, roll call please.
Chair Epstein,
Here.
Commissioner Ismail,
Here.
Commissioner Ross, Commissioner Felton,
It looks like he's
Commissioner Bennett,
Here.
Commissioner Siegel,
Here.
Commissioner Edwards,
Here.
Commissioner Guadarrama,
Here.
Commissioner Stringer Moore, Student Commissioner Lichtenberger,
Here.
Student Commissioner Mirza,
Here,
Student Commissioner Boring.
we are adjourned in September, so
That concludes roll call.
it's September.
so it doesn't matter.
What's that?
Well, the other commissioner hasn't been, but
Rissy, I don't know if you got me. I was on mute.
I did get you.
Thank you.
And you got me also, Rissy?
I got you.
All right, thank you.
so next we have a motion to approve the meeting agenda.
So moved.
Commissioner Ross, and a second. Second, Commissioner Edwards. Roll call vote, please.
Chair Epstein,
Yay.
Commissioner Ismail,
Here.
Commissioner Ross,
Yes.
Commissioner Felton,
Yes,
Commissioner Bennett,
Aye.
Commissioner Siegel, Commissioner Edwards,
Aye.
Commissioner Guadarrama.
Aye.
That concludes roll call.
Okay. The meeting minutes were sent out in our packet. Can I get a motion to approve the meeting minutes unless someone has changes?
Well, I have 2. First, on the roll call, I think it should be student commissioners plural, under number 2. And then the other is regarding initiative number 4. It has me listed that I'll be in charge of organizing the open mic section of the event, but I think that should be going under initiative 3. Because initiative 4, we haven't discussed any actual logistics so far.
That was for initiative 3, you said?
I believe so, unless
Got it.
or not.
Okay.
I had those same 2, and in addition, under work plan development, B, last line, I think it would be felon voting rights. I think that is what we were talking about, felon disenfranchisement. And then the same in the next item at the top of page 3, last line of the first bullet point, felon voting rights. And so an S at the end of rights. And then the next bullet, gauge, check the spelling of gauge in line 2. I think there's a U that's supposed to be in there, and those were my additional changes.
Any others? We have a motion to approve the meeting minutes with the changes that were described.
Move.
Commissioner Siegel, a second.
Second,
Commissioner Ross, roll call, please.
Chair Epstein,
Aye.
Commissioner Ismail,
Aye.
Commissioner Ross,
aye.
Commissioner Felton,
Aye.
Commissioner Bennett,
Aye.
Commissioner Siegel, Commissioner Edwards,
Aye.
Commissioner Guadarrama. That concludes roll call.
Thank you. So community comment, that would only be if someone was actually here, right here.
That's correct.
All right, so just the attendees are here. We will keep moving along to reports and recommendations. Number 6 on our agenda. We'll start with the 2021 Human Rights and Relations Commission Work Plan. So if everyone got the plan that was in our packet, of course, initiative number 1 was completed. And we discussed that last meeting, I believe. And then initiative number 2, I know that we're starting the process with that one. Commissioner Edwards, did you want to talk about it at all, or?
This is a classic. It's pretty much a rinse and repeat. We change the
Right.
date on the documents and post them. Heidi's done a great job of assembling all of that. I'm alarmed that there's only 2 of us on the committee, but ultimately all of the commission should have access and read the essays and have some input to the decisions that we make, I hope. Isn't that correct, Heidi? I think that's what we did last year.
That's correct.
So we're on course to begin the printing and distribution of the posters. I don't think bookmarks make sense, but we can certainly discuss that as a group. There's not a lot of tactile interaction with the community right now, so putting out stacks of bookmarks doesn't really make a lot of cost sense, but we can put some posters out in the same place we did the DOR list, I think, if the group agrees to that. And then we will collect our essays electronically or physically, right? Some of them actually do come into City Hall.
Yes.
So it's a pretty popular event. We haven't had, the 2 of us haven't met because we really haven't had a reason to, but we should be certainly able to hit our target of December's City Council meeting. So.
And I can certainly help you out, Commissioner Edwards, with whatever, when we get the posters and distributing and the things like that. So.
Yeah, we probably need some legwork just to get this stuff. I think that our DOR list worked pretty well, so we can use that same list over. And Heidi, you said you thought we had 30 posters?
They haven't been ordered, so.
No, I mean for the DOR, was it a quantity of
yes.
30?
Yep,
Yeah,
30.
I wouldn't go any bigger than that if I were you.
Yeah,
So.
I think that's a good number for this, because you were waiting on that number for us, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
30 is probably good.
And then just tweak the dates. I would suggest we add years. A lot of these posters do not have the year on them. I don't know why they don't do that, but I think we should put the year on along with changing the dates. So.
Definitely.
Commissioner Edwards, would you be willing to provide the timeline for the award? Just kind of the different phases? Or would you like me to do that?
I would be reading your email, so if you wouldn't mind, that would be great.
Okay.
You have the facts.
Just to give everyone a timeline from now until mid-September, it's going to be the subcommittee is reviewing the documentation as well as kind of just the application to see if there's any changes. In that same timeline, they're also doing some sort of marketing and working with communications. I did go ahead and approve a marketing on the Edina magazine website so that there is a banner for 3 months. And for those 3 months, it's for different events within the HRC. So for September, it is going to be Stop the Hate event. And then in October, it will be the community conversations. And then in November, it will be the Tom Oy Award. So kind of putting that umbrella marketing for those 3 events, but they will be on the Edina magazine online site. And then September 27th is when the Tom Oy application will open. And it will be open for 6 weeks. And then it will close on November 8th. And that Monday. So it is 6 weeks. And then November 16th is when the packet as well as the applications will be provided to the HRC, and you as a full commission will decide who is the recipient for that timeline. And then December 7th will be the presentation at City Council for the award recipient. So that is the timeline for this timeline.
Point of information. This year we're doing 1 recipient, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Should we maybe put together a matrix for criteria? Because I know in the beginning when we were only doing the 1 award, we struggled sometimes when there were people that had a lot of years of life and had an impactful work because of their age versus students and young adults.
You can certainly, as a commission, you can certainly go ahead and use that as far as like that, just part of your decision making. But I know for staff members, we don't have a matrix that's already been created. So that's something that we'd have to look at. What are the other criteria that other cities may have had if they have provided an award like this. So we can definitely take a look into having that for you. And then also getting feedback from the commission as what they think are some like high value point system, or how would you use that to be able to make that decision of who would be the award recipient.
I think it might be helpful to have something. I know we have struggled in the past.
Point of clarification.
When you said the banners, you said September was going to be,
Stop the Hate event.
which is this September.
Yep, the
Okay.
September event. So it'll be a banner where it'll have the date and time of the event, and then someone can click on it, and then it'll bring the poster or
Right.
some sort of notification. And then October will be the community conversation about race, justice, and policing.
Because
Up
that
in-
event is being held the 17th of October.
That's correct.
Yeah, I was just kind of concerned because when it goes up November 1st and the submission is over on the 8th,
Mhm.
if we could have the timeline in October, but then I hate to miss the event. You can only do 1 banner per event.
Yeah.
So,
But we'll have other social media,
Mhm.
right?
yeah, no, I was just saying that if we could get, the exposure in October for Tom Oy on there, but I understand that the event needs it, so. Makes sense.
And we can have posters at all the events as well. So
Yeah, and we'll mention it. We should start mentioning it. I don't think we did at Days of Remembrance, but at the next 2 events, we should mention that we have an award for human rights.
Mhm.
That's a good idea, Commissioner Edwards. So. Okay, anything else with Tom Oy?
I don't think so.
If there's a poster ready for that by the event, that could be another way of publicizing it as well, in addition to an announcement.
Yeah, bringing it, having it out.
Actually having a poster
Yeah.
in the lobby or a poster or 2 in the lobby.
Maybe even some applications or something.
Yeah, I think all we need to change on the poster is the date, right, Heidi? It looks pretty solid. I have it up here if you want to see it. Where is it?
Yeah, there's, it's just for this year of the poster, it would just be like minor changes such as like the font or,
Yeah.
color.
Well, I think it's another one of those branded events, right?
Yeah.
Whose phone number is that? Is that yours or is that City Hall? The 952-826-1622.
That's fine.
Okay. Are you all right with that?
Yeah.
Can I share this or
It may be easier.
I don't think I can take share. Doesn't look like it lets me share my screen.
Needs to make you a co-host if you need to share. Cannot share if you are not host.
Can you try it now, Commissioner Edwards?
I am. There it is. So there's the screen. Gotta get all this other stuff out of the way. So we've used the same one, I think, multiple years, and it's got a picture of Tom.
That's what the bookmark looked like.
Yep. And obviously, I would love to have comma 2021 instead of just no year, and then Heidi's phone number and the Edina seal, which makes it an official document. So I think it's pretty sharp. I don't think we need to change it. And you said we didn't have a budget to change it anyway, so.
It's not the redesign year for it.
Nope. And I think sticking with something consistent. I mean, people have seen this for multiple years, so. And then the bookmark, here's the application, which I don't think we have many changes to make either. It's essentially about the award, some of the criteria, and the dates obviously need to change, but then who you are, and then there's your entry. And I think we did a good job of putting this together to start with, so I don't know that we need to make any changes to it either. And then the bookmark was over here. I don't think we need the bookmark. So let me give you back your screen.
Okay.
So
Let's
yeah,
move on to initiative number 3. Commissioner Felton?
Well, did we satisfy your statement, Commissioner Stringer Moore? Your recommendation, did you get a response or answer? I don't think we answered her
Yeah, I think
recommendation.
my understanding is the committee gonna work on a matrix, or maybe I'm the only person that feels like we need a matrix, but I just know that it can be a,
No, I think we need it.
yeah.
So
I
are we going to?
think staff liaison, my understanding was going to research to see if any other people had a matrix that we could maybe tweak to for our use. Is that correct? Is that follow-up?
Yep, I can certainly go ahead and research it, but as a commission, then you would want to go ahead and make that voting decision to start using that matrix.
Yeah, the only thing I would do is caution everybody because we have so much flexibility now with the award. And so when you do things like that, you will take away from that. Now, that doesn't mean that's a bad thing. I just want to make sure that we all kind of consider that. Yeah, so that was the takeaway from there is that we'll have some research done on what other cities are doing, and then we'll get back to Commissioner Edwards and talk with her about it, and her and I and Sabine, and then we'll figure out if it's a good route to go down.
Okay. All right. For initiative 3, tonight we're going to have Mamie started off by talking about the Emcees and the expert panelists, and then Commissioner Sabi will give an update on the open mic, and then Commissioner Joni Bennett will give an update on the government officials, and then I'll end up with doing a update on the marketing piece. So with that, we'll introduce Mamie. Commissioner Mamie Segal, go ahead, please.
Yeah, thanks, Commissioner Felton.
Okay.
Can everybody hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yep, already great. So I'm going to just briefly run through the MC and the panelists, and then I'll have Commissioner Bennett can go into more detail about our third panel. As you may all remember, we're having the Stop the Hate event. It is Sunday, September 12th from 3 to 5 p.m., and it will come in multiple phases. So Commissioner Jasmine Stringer Moore has graciously agreed to be our MC for the event, and will really be key in helping us smoothly move through the timing of the 2 hours. Our first panel is going to be community members talking about their experience with hate or unpleasantness based on race, ethnicity, other characteristic in our community. We have 4 panelists who will be on our first panel. We have a representative from the Jewish Community Relations Council, and it will either be Steve Hunnigs or Anthony Sussman. It will depend on whether the event will be virtual or not, so they will be confirming which of the 2 of them will be speaking. Joni, Commissioner Bennett has secured Dr. Ankita Deka, who will be speaking about the experience Asian Americans are having. And I'm going to drop a brief footnote to say every speaker will be talking about experiences of their own community and then also more universally, because it's not realistic for us to have every single community on the panel. We'll be talking about the experience of being kind of seen as the other among us. Thirdly, we will have a speaker from the Anti-Racism Collective. We are working on securing Nicole Jennings, who is waiting to clear a conflict in her schedule. If Nicole is not able to be with us, she has a woman of color who will be her substitute. And I've been back and forth with her today on securing whether it will be Nicole or the substitute she will be securing for us. And lastly, we will have a speaker from Out Front, Minnesota, James Darville, who will be talking about LGBTQ+ experience. So that's our first panel. Commissioner Felton, would you like me to go through the open mic and the panel 3 as well?
I was thinking that the open mic that Student Commissioner Mirza would run.
Yeah, then I'll stop now. So that's our first panel. Happy to answer questions or provide more detail if that would be helpful.
What's the timeline on that? Like, how long are you giving each one?
Each speaker will have about between 6 and 8 minutes, ideally closer to 6. The entire panel will be a half hour. So there's not going to be a back and forth among the panelists. Each panelist is going to be speaking about the experience of being treated in a way that feels hateful.
Quick question of clarification. It's not an actual panel, right? It's more like a speaking order, correct?
Commissioner Mirza, I think that's you, and thank you for that clarification. That is correct. We are calling it, we have panel 1 and panel 3, but we're going to have individual speakers coming to speak. We've been spending a decent amount of time talking about the logistics of the room, speaking at a podium in the front of the room. So thanks for that point of clarification. And I think, yeah, Commissioner Stringer Moore had a question.
Do you know the name of the person that would maybe represent the ARC?
Yeah, I was actually going back and forth, Commissioner Stringer Moore, with Nicole Jennings today. And I'm embarrassed to tell you, I have her first name, which is Bianca, and I do not have her last name.
Okay, I know who she is. Okay, perfect.
I figured, I think a lot of people do, but Nicole wasn't able to get me the last name before the meeting time.
And then I know that you said in your opening remarks that people would speak to their individual experience, and then we weren't going to have every racial group represented at the panel 1 session as a speaker. But do you think that maybe we are missing the Latino community as a key community? Because I think when you look at the demographics of our city and where the large pockets of diversity come from, that is a significant group in our community that I think should be represented.
That's a good comment, Commissioner Stringer Moore. Maybe Commissioner Bennett could talk to that real quickly.
If I may, yes, please. So thank you, Commissioner Siegel. And yes, what Dr. Deka explained to me is that she will focus her comments on higher level understanding that people's personal experiences are important, but they're also part of a greater whole or pattern. So she is the speaker I directly contacted. And I think in part one, because of the significance and the time being given to open mic, part one is less about personal experience and more about people whose work is with, they have personal experience, but they're also working with populations. And in Dr. Dacus' case, she actually has a specialty in research on health impacts. She's a social work professor at Oxford University. To Commissioner Stringer Moore's question, we have been working with, and to Commissioner Guadarrama's correspondence with Commissioner Felton and also great suggestions. We actually have been, I have been corresponding for over a month now with the mayor of Richfield, and she had, she was interested and had the date available, but not the time. So she was actually going to be one of our speakers for, rather than referring to them as panels, I've been referring to them as parts. Part one, part two, part three. And our part three speakers, governmental representatives, we're going to include Mayor Reagan Gonzalez from Richfield. And understanding that because of limitations of time and because we are giving so much weight to individual comment and to holding an open mic, which is a period of time that will be longer than any other in the event. The whole event is 2 hours. We're giving a half an hour to the part one, a half an hour to part two, and 45 minutes to part two. So again, without the ability to represent everyone in the community, we were in part relying on the intersections that people were representing. So having learned just this afternoon that Mayor Reagan Gonzalez is not going to be able to participate, I am intending to circle back to Commissioner Guadarrama to work with her on coming up with a solution to this problem that we did not know the exact parameter of until again this afternoon. Commissioner Guadarrama, will that be acceptable to you?
I just want to first of all say, even though I'm Latina, I do not represent all Latinos in the state of Minnesota. And I think we have to be very careful when we invite a speaker and we expect to be the experts in all the community. Our experience are our own. I know Maria Gonzalez very well, from Richfield, as we are a few in our community, and we know each other well. Also, remember we have Melissa Franzen, our state senator. We have Patricia Torres Rey, we have Carlos Mariani, we have Emilia Gonzalez. We have so many people that can be speakers, not only from Richfield. I will be more than willing to find you somebody who can speak. I think it's representation matters. And thank you so much, Commissioner Stringer Moore, for mentioning that we are the second minority according to the census. So we have to be very, very sure to include us, the Latino community. We are everywhere. And I think we have to have a voice everywhere. Thank you.
I do want to follow up and say that I did speak with Senator Franzen this afternoon, and she is not going to be available. We had spoken with her first. She was one of the first people we reached out to in May when we didn't have a date certain. And over the times that the date has been changed for, she's been initially available, then unavailable. And so just to respond to the questions, the effort has been part of the work all along. And again, just got clarification today on correspondence that's been pending between the mayor's office and me, or between the mayor directly and me.
And let me jump in, Commissioner Guadarrama and Commissioner Stringer Moore. I can speak that Commissioner Bennett and Commissioner Siegel have worked very hard to get representation from all the communities out there. But we were on a time crunch, and also we are limited in terms of time on the parts 1, 2, and 3. And so it came down to eventually first come, first serve in terms of the communities that responded back to us, because we had to get, you know, the program ready, things of that sort of nature. And as Commissioner Bennett said today, Mayor Gonzalez just responded to us today to say, no, she cannot do this. So if it was my intent, yes, we wanted to, everyone on the committee wanted to have representation by the Latino community. It just didn't work out that way. We tried.
And I think that everyone has the best intent. Can I just pose one more question, Joni, as an option to maybe go back to the mayor, since the first session, part 1, is more of a personal narrative, lived experience storytelling. Perhaps we ask the mayor if he's willing to record a video at the same time.
I actually have another idea, and again, Commissioner Guardarama, I did not have time because of some other things that I've been working on today to reach out to you directly yet today, but it was my intention to speak with you this evening. What I would like to propose is that we shift some time possibly between part 1 and part 3. Borrow 5 minutes from part 3, since we will have a shorter list of public officials, and move it to part 1 and invite somebody. In fact, Commissioner Guardarama, I would be delighted if you would be willing to speak. If you wish us to choose somebody else, I would be happy to do my best to contact other people. Again, it's been something I've been working on since we decided to host this event. And I'm sorry to be, reporting what I'm reporting today, but I haven't given up yet. And would be happy to follow up with you.
I can support
Either
that.
for you or for somebody else on that short list you had provided.
I would be more than glad to find somebody. Let's talk. Let's communicate later, and I can find you somebody. Thank you.
Yes.
Just keep in mind that the time constraints that we have. But yeah, I concur with that. Does everyone else on the committee concur and support that? On the subcommittee?
Yeah, this is Commissioner Siegel. I do support it. And I appreciate the back and forth and the work Commissioner Bennett's put through. So I think this is a really good option. I do want to just have us all, though, acknowledge that we are not going to have representatives of every community, which is why I tried to articulate at the beginning, people will be talking about their lived experiences and also speaking generally, in particular, Dr. Deca, who is, professionally studies that. But I think that's a risk we have as a commission that I really want everyone to kind of know about, and if it's a concern, to talk about. Because I'd actually also been trying to find a representative from the Indigenous community, and I was not successful. And then we just started to recognize if you're going to make an effort or create the impression that you are representing everybody, that's not going to be possible in this event. So I do support absolutely the effort that we just landed on, but I do have this concern is the wrong word, just acknowledgement that there will be groups not sitting or coming up to the room other than an open mic, in speaking about their experiences. So I just want to be upfront about that. That's something that, I've been kind of wrestling with myself.
I'm sorry to be asking all these questions, and I understand what you're saying, and it is so hard and there are a lot of moving pieces, so I commend the group. I just want to throw one more point of consideration out there. If Nicole Jennings isn't available to participate, I believe the person she was referring to is Bianca Monique, having her represent the ARC. But looking at the demographics of the city of Edina, I think it would be, a wonderful opportunity to have someone that represents the East African community, and maybe our own Commissioner Ismail could take that spot, or someone that she knows to represent that community if Nicole Jennings isn't able to speak. And I'm sorry, Commissioner Ismail, to put you on the spot, but perhaps you could do it, or you could work with someone with the commission. Just a thought. Again, looking at the demographics of our city and the representation. Yeah.
She's on the committee.
Just to jump in here, sorry.
Commissioner Ismail's on the committee, and so a lot of this work should be done at the committee work, which is why they have all these meetings ahead of time. I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead, Commissioner Ismail.
Yeah, thank you. No problem. We talked about that back in the beginning of when we were planning this, and one person that I mentioned was Okasha Dakane, that who was run as city councilor in last election. And he will be a great contribution to talk about it. He's passionate about justice and all that. And I mentioned before, but I think we kind of had one person from East Africa who was Jailani, right, Sigo? Am I right? Yeah. So Jailani was one of the representatives that was part of the speakers, and I recommended Okasha too. So, I mean, there's a lot of people. I personally can represent as women of color and East African, but I'm sure part of the planning, was to have more people. But yeah, I'm still recommending Okasha if he can be part of it, which he's already sent one of his intern send an email requesting to be part of that, and I don't know how far we plan to add him. So
Let me jump in though. Remember, this event is less than 30 days away. As I mentioned, and I think Commissioner Epstein was also alluding to this, we spent a lot of time planning and trying to make sure that everyone was involved. And as Commissioner Siegel said, it just wasn't possible. Now, here is an option. Maybe part two, the open mic, at this late stage of the game, we could reach out to other members of the community and encourage them to speak during the open mic session. How does that sound?
No, that sounds great. I was just saying if Nicole Jennings isn't available and you have to backfill her, I was saying that would be, perhaps that could be a, considered replacement since she has the potential schedule conflict. So I'm just speaking to the two people that have schedule conflicts. We have like the mayor that's not going to participate. So those slots that you were planning for, I was providing recommendations on who to fill those with.
Well, we were also responding to, we did outreach to groups in the community, particularly people whom Commissioner Felton and I have been in contact with during the census process. We worked on the complete count committee. And when we reached out to people to determine if there was interest and support for this event, a perceived need, the answer that we got was yes. They wanted it in a government building and they wanted their elected officials to hear from them and they wanted to hear from elected officials about what the plan is. So when people look at this time and might say, well, why are you allocating this much time here and this much time there? Again, the biggest part has been given over to open mic community comment so that people can speak about their personal experiences on their own behalf. And that has caused us to use part one and part three in different ways. And it has definitely reduced the number of people whom we can invite to speak in those parts. Also remembering that when you invite someone to speak and ask them to give up an afternoon, it's nice to be able to give them at least 5 minutes of time. And the more speakers there are, the less time each speaker will have.
Good point, Commissioner Bennett. Commissioner Siegel, were you going to say something, Commissioner Epstein?
Well, I thought that Student Commissioner Mirza was going to tell us about the other part of the event. Or are we not there yet, Commissioner Felton?
Well, I just wanted to circle back with Commissioner Siegel and also Commissioner Ishmael. Do you guys have anything else to add? Are you okay?
I don't have anything else to add, and I think Commissioner Bennett articulated the challenges and the way we walked through this, really well. And while we want to satisfy everybody, it's not possible. So we've been making some compromises as we go, really with multiple hours of working together. And I am comfortable with the balance we have. And I appreciate the commentary very much. And Commissioner Stringer Moore, your thoughts about if Nicole Jennings isn't able to make it. I certainly think she will be able to. And we've been back and forth quite a bit. But I am comfortable. The question is, as a full commission, I'd like us all to be comfortable and supportive of the event.
And Commissioner Edwards, please.
What elected officials have committed to attending?
So we're jumping from part 1 to part 3, and we still.
Oh, sorry, I don't have a part 3 in front of me, so I'm not sure.
Sorry, we did put that online. Part 2 is open mic. Would you like to hear about that first, and then we'll go to public officials, which is part 3?
Long as it's in there somewhere, that's all I wanted to hear.
Yes.
So.
Yes.
All right, so as it stands right now, the plan was to use the 2 podiums in the council chambers, and I believe they have a timing system on them with lights, is what I was told, for 3 minutes. So we were hoping instead of 3-minute speaking time, that would give about 15 speakers total. And then as for making sure there are enough speakers, I've been reaching out to students around EHS of various groups. So there's the Black Student Union, Asian Culture Club, etc., that all have plans to come. So there will be students speaking regardless, and then we've also been in touch with members of the community. And then the idea was to have them make 2 lines on the sides of the room and use the podiums. And I think we did have a few logistical questions about the direction of the podiums, but I think we're going to discuss it in our next meeting. And then it was 45 minutes, and then we're doing our best to make sure that we'll have enough people there to fill those 45 minutes. While also sorry.
You won't have a problem with that.
Yeah, we're also accounting for transitional times between switching off, which is why 2 podiums makes more sense, because that way there's no transition period between someone walking off and then having to disinfect a mic. And if I missed anything, y'all can step in, but.
Very, very good, Student Commissioner Mirza. Okay, we're on part 3.
Okay, and I did want to just remind people, I think we've discussed this before, Dr. Dacre is a resident of our community, is an Edina resident. So when possible, we have tried to find.
Assessment is too.
Yes,
Yeah.
and Tony Sussman as well. So when we can, we have actually tried to find somebody, an organization, within an organization with a connection to the community. For part 3, we have commitments from Edina Mayor Jim Hovland to speak on behalf of the city. We have firm commitment from Dr. Stacy Stanley, the new school superintendent, to speak on behalf of the Edina Public Schools. Again, we were working with Mayor Ray Gonzalez. We understand that this is Edina, not Richville, but we also understand that there is a shared border, a shared portion of school districts. And I think she would have been a very powerful speaker, and I'm sorry that we were not able to fit within her schedule. And then we also have a commitment from Representative Heather Adelson. We did, again, work with Senator Franzen to try to get her participation, but ultimately we're not able. And I know the reason. I'm not going to discuss it on an open line. Then and then also Dr. Ellen Kennedy, who is a resident of our community, former member of this commission with World Without Genocide. Our initial conception of part 3 was that it was going to be solutions-based. And as Commissioner Ismail recalls, we had discussed inviting CARE and Jelani Hussain. But as it evolved and we realized what we were facing in terms of time, and also wanting to make sure that we were inviting speakers who would have at least 5 minutes of microphone, we realized we had to change part 3 into more a governmental body response rather than community-wide. So World Without Genocide will be the one solutions, or it's solutions part 3. World Without Genocide will be the one solutions organization in that part of the event. And Dr. Kennedy will be participating virtually. She will not be speaking in person.
Commissioner Edwards, does that satisfy your question?
How much time is allotted to part 3?
Right now, 30 minutes. If we borrow from part 3 and move it up to part 1 to expand time for a speaker with whom Commissioner Guadarrama and I will work on that problem. Or not a problem, opportunity. But then we would time shift probably about 5 minutes, 6 minutes from part 3 to part 1, making part 1 35 minutes and making part 3 25 minutes. We certainly can't keep people longer than the 2-hour event. A lot of times people plan events for an hour and a half. That's when a lot of people vote with their feet. We're expanding it to 2 to be able to cover as much as we're covering. But regretfully, just with enormous regret, we will not be able to cover everything. We're just trying to do the best we can.
And I think Commissioner Bennett said it well. We're trying to do the best that we can. And
Trust me, we're volunteers. I completely understand that. So.
All right. If there are no other questions, then I'll move on to the marketing piece. But we're doing several things on the marketing front. We have Commissioner Bennett and Student Commissioner Mirza. They are scheduled to do an interview on Edina TV. And I don't know if Dave actually recorded that yet, but if not, they'll record it this week. We have our posters, 30 posters that Staff Liaison Heidi Lee printed for us, and I think they're ready now. We have the electronic, what is it called? The electronic marquee out front of City Hall that will advertise the event. And so I think we're doing okay from a marketing standpoint. Now, the challenge is this Delta variant is growing every day. And so I'm kind of been wondering if we do push this from a marketing standpoint, do we have the challenge of having too many people there in close quarters? And will that set us up for some negative feedback at some point? I don't know. But that's something that we'll have to work out between now and the event. But otherwise, the marketing is proceeding quite well. So with that said, are there any other questions before I turn it back over to Chair Chair Epstein? Okay, Chair Epstein is to you, sir. Thank you very much.
Can I just say kudos to the committee for this is a lot of heavy lifting. So kudos to everybody working on this. I mean, it's like you guys are doing 3 different events in one event. And I know there's been a lot of mention of the time being spent on this event. So just thank you for doing this for our community.
Well, thank you. It's been our pleasure so far.
Yeah, I would echo those sentiments. I think that this is one of the most complicated events we've had in terms of moving parts. And so I admire all the work and effort that all of you put into it. It's not easy. We'll never have anything that is all encompassing, other than the fact that I think everything we do should be all encompassing. And so we've got to really just kind of look at it that way. And I think Commissioner Siegel and Bennett and everyone else vocalized that very well. And so I'm looking forward to it. Of course, with the Delta variant, there's not much we can do, but the city does now, it's not that they're requiring people to put on masks, but when you walk up to City Hall now, it says, please wear a mask. There's no more vaccinated, not vaccinated. So I think that helps our cause a little bit. And I think that people who are very cautious about what's going on right now will have the opportunity to be online or virtual. And a lot of people are getting exposed to our events that way. And so that's my only, because I agree 100% with what you're saying, Commissioner Felton. But the fact that we now do things where people can get online, I feel so much better about people being able to participate, because it wouldn't be fair to those who are immunocompromised if they had no way to participate at all in this. And so, and the logistics for the.
I hope that doesn't change. I hope that stays as a ongoing construct for every event that we offer, because I think there are huge communities that probably don't want to come into a facility, whether there's a pandemic or not. I think it really does. But we had what 400 and some hits on the DOR event. I mean, that's amazing. That's twice the crowd we would normally have had in a on-site, on-prem experience. So, and I don't think it costs the city that much to publish. So.
No, yeah, and they can watch it at their own leisure because there's times where you can go back to Facebook. I mean, you can go to the Days of Remembrance event right now and watch it. And so it's, I just think you're 100% correct. That should be something that never goes away, that people have the ability to watch it from their own homes. So. Well, great. Thank you again all for all your hard work, and it's coming down to the wire. So anyone else who has changes or comments about it, reach out to me, Commissioner Felton, whoever it is, and we, I always love everybody's input. So thank you. Is there anything else? Any other questions or comments for the two initiatives, 3 and 4? Okay. Initiative 5, the only thing that would be an update there is that we do have the new police commissioner coming to talk to our group in November, of course. So that will be nice to have a chance to meet the new police commissioner. It's one of the things about our commission that I think is something that I love to be able to tell the people in our community that we have dialogue with the police. And so we're looking forward to that. And if anyone has any questions or comments for the police commissioner that they don't feel comfortable directing directly to the police commissioner, if you feel comfortable submitting those to me ahead of time, I can do that kind of on behalf of our group, because I know that can be kind of a, I don't know, awkward's the right word, but it's just something that I think if it comes from our group, it may be something people are more comfortable with. So that is an option. Okay, and then initiative 6.
That will be provided to the commission in October. So that's just an update that I have from the Parks and Rec staff.
Okay, so any other questions about 2021 work plan?
And Commissioner Felton or Commissioner Siegel or Commissioner Bennett or Perza or Ismail, is there anyone that wants to provide an update on the community conversation event that's happening in October? Or would you like to wait until September to provide an update?
Yeah, I was kind of grouping those together, so I guess.
Well, does anyone else have anything to say before I jump in?
Well, I did want to say that with respect to the September 12th event, each public official, member of the council and member of the school board, has been individually invited. I have sent individual invitations on behalf of the HRC to each of them, and I will be sending a reminder or follow-up invitation, letting them know that we're asking them to be present to listen, and that we also will recognize them at the beginning of the program in an introduction. But just didn't want people to know that the word is being shared, the formal invitation being made to each and every.
Commissioner student liaison, getting it all confused, but staff liaison Heidi Lee. I think you and I can speak offline regarding initiative 4 before I actually present something to the group. Okay.
Sure.
All right. Thank you.
Okay. So with that, we can move on to our 2022 Human Rights and Relations Work Plan proposal. Just to review, this is the second time that we've discussed our work plan. The first time last meeting we went through and we did not eliminate any of the what I would call the yearly work plan initiatives. All of those are still present. We can kind of reaffirm that all of those are the case. And then what we did is we included in the packet the suggestions that we had at the end of last meeting And so, staff liaison Lee, for our goal for this evening, it's nothing that we need to have finalized certainly by this evening. But what would be a good goal to have done tonight?
I think it would be good to have them in order by initiatives for this year, for 2022, or the upcoming year. It would be, City Council wants each initiative to be ranked depending on priority. So currently that you have on your list is a total of, I believe, 6. And so prioritizing which of these, because at the very end of the council decision, they can go ahead and eliminate some of these. And so they would like to be able to get your feedback as a commission of if they're, for example, and this is not going to happen, but if it does, you know, they can take a look at your work plan and say, well, 6 is too much. We need to take a look at that. We want to see what they have prioritized as their most urgent, and so they want to be able to get that. So I think for tonight, if you're able to start prioritizing which of these initiatives, 1 through 6, or just getting that feedback as a whole would be important.
Okay, so everyone understands what that every other year, we just kind of laid out all the initiatives, but certainly this year council's charged us with ordering them. I don't know that there's any sort of consequences to that or real difference. I mean, it's not like we would stop doing initiative 6 because it was our 6th in order or anything like that they told us. It's more where they think our effort, we're telling them where our efforts are going to be strongest and possible. So we can start that discussion. Does anyone feel strongly about which initiative? I do actually, but I'd love to hear from the group first. Should be the #1 initiative going into next year. Commissioner Ross.
I believe we should make the Days of Remembrance the #1 priority.
Okay. Does anyone else have one of the initiatives that they feel strongly would be?
Maybe just like the first one, the coordinating sharing values, like the community event, or the bias offense and incident response plan.
Sure. And everyone here, Student Commissioner Lichtenberger said sharing values would be probably her first, followed pretty closely by bias offense. I actually had a strong feeling about sharing values as well. Mine kind of comes from the George Floyd incident and what's gone on in Minneapolis, which borders our community. And then I had Days of Remembrance right after that. So just because it's been a yearly event that we always hold, that's very well attended by people who come. And it's really a day to remember genocide, and so it's not something where it's specific to any one group. We have had Holocaust speakers in the past, but that was kind of my thought process between those two. I also thought that the researching city facility naming policies is very important. I love that as an initiative, but if that were #6, it wouldn't bother me really, because I just couldn't picture us not having a Days of Remembrance or a bias offense plan or a Tom Owen Award or any of those, whereas I could see us functioning without that one, not that it's not important. So that was kind of my thought process behind ranking that a little lower. Probably also the partner with the arts to host the Juneteenth. Again, I think that's a huge deal, and I think it's exciting that we would be doing that one. But it just doesn't have any history with us, and so that unfortunately is the only reason I rank it a little lower. I don't know if that.
But I'm not really sure why we need to join. I mean, I think arts and culture could probably do that without us, right?
I would agree. I think there's strong interest, especially I know with the ARC, like community partners. I think if there was an opportunity to, participate in the event, but just knowing our bandwidth and how many hours events take on fellow commissioners, I think we should be mindful of the events that we are adding to the work plan this year. And I see that one could happen very successfully without our involvement.
Well, yeah, I guess that brings up a good point. Thank you, Commissioner Edwards and Stringamore, that these, we don't need to have 6 initiatives still. I mean, we can go down to 5. These are not anything that we've voted on or approved yet. So if there's ones that we feel we need to take off, and I guess if there's something else that you'd like to add, we can do that too. Commissioner Siegel.
Yeah, thanks, Chair Epstein. I agree with the order and the reasoning that you shared. I thought that was really well said. On that first event, the community sharing, I wanted to add that actually speaking with Nicole Jennings in particular, she really pushed the idea that our Stop the Hate event should not be a one and done, that we should have the event and that we should come back to it next year and see what we've learned. Have things improved? Have they not? And have it be something that the city commits to, I don't know for how many years, but certainly more than once. And I really liked that idea. So I don't know if that would be an additional initiative or that would be the community sharing. So I'm looking at my small print here in the sharing values, sharing communities. But I really thought her kind of passion about it was well placed, and I agreed with the point she was making to me. So I wanted to share that with the group.
Well, and the nice part about that piece is we can integrate so many other panelists every year. And so all these groups that we want to represent, you know, it would be less of a burden on everybody on that committee if they knew, well, next, you know, if you talk to somebody and they say, I'm not available that night, if we said, well, look, this is an event that we plan to do once or twice a year.
Right.
Would you be interested in the future? Then we start to populate a list of speakers that are strong in all the different communities, and we can start to cycle through them, which would be really neat.
I think we really need to have a survey to find out how effective these are. And if one a year isn't enough, then we streamline it more and do it 2 or 3 times a year and find a way to make it more flexible, easier to produce. I mean, maybe with less overhead and less labor, but we get feedback and get some kind of sense of, are we making a difference? You know, is this for show, or is it actually impacting policymakers, or how can we measure this? We've got to
outcome based, or is it
for show, or is it for dough? You know what I mean? And I think we should do these 2 or 3 times a year. There's too many gaps in between, and they don't have to be again, back to virtual media. We don't have to be on-prem with all of the hysterics about putting it together in city council. If we can do virtual stuff and have much more interactive, community-based input. I mean, I think we should have Klobuchar. I think we should have, any level of government involved if we're going to try and get feedback, not only the locals, but work our way through the commission, because we've certainly got a Hennepin County commissioner, and work our way through the state and try and get some sort of feedback loop. Does that make sense?
Yes. Thank you, Commissioner Edwards. Commissioner Stringer-Moore, did you have something to add to that? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I did. I think that Commissioner Edwards made a very valid point, and Commissioner Siegel made a valid point about the timing and the continuity of the Stop the Hate event. And I know when I first joined the commission, we actually did 2 sharing value, sharing community events throughout the year. And I know I just said something about us being event heavy, but I think.
But they weren't heavy, Jasmine. They really weren't that heavy to put together.
No, I'm just saying the work.
Plate of cookies, and we booked the place.
They weren't heavy. You're correct.
Yeah.
But so I wanted to say this. I think the Stop the Hate event is important, and I'm very much in favor of us continuing that and adding that to the work plan. But I would be remiss if I said that we should not keep sharing value, sharing community as a separate thing, because with sharing value, sharing community, we talked about like mental health. We were looking at talking about climate the climate and the environment, climate change. We were talking about things of like sex trafficking. So they were not always race-related topics, but extremely important topics in our community. We were looking at like an event around vaping. So I don't know if there's an opportunity to do sharing value, sharing community on a HRRC topic, and then add a Stop the Hate event.
Yeah. Commissioner Ismail?
I think what we all shared is valid and is actually something that we should keep it. But I feel like we should first, before we add it or before we agree to add it, we should see how it goes on this first event and how interested the people show. I mean, obviously this is a great topic and it's something that can be continually, keep doing it. But again, you want to see how people kind of appreciate it hearing other people experience, and that way we can charge, like we can see that how it goes. But it actually kind of stop the hate. It's not only one thing that affects with one community. It's like it's happening with all community. I mean, for example, I myself wearing hijab and someone kind of hate me wearing that hijab. That kind of makes it educated some of the people who does not know what I'm wearing or what kind of story that I carry. So this is, well, it's a great topic and something that we should keep it more than a year or more than twice. But just to see how it goes, this event will be something that all of us to see. And if it goes well and everybody interested, and it's something that educated so many community learn from something, and they said, I didn't know this, I'd love to know more. Of course, it's something to keep it on our yearly calendar.
Yeah, it's an excellent point that once the events it's taken place, and then we all gather back together and we can evaluate what went well, what didn't, what we should do differently, how we want it to look next year. So I agree. Any other comments on the order, Commissioner Bennett?
Well, Commissioner Guadarrama made a really strong point, I thought, at our last meeting, which is, how are we measuring impact, or do we have a measurement of impact? Or when we create a work plan, are we evaluating the likely impact? And I think that's what I'm hearing people talk about, and I appreciate Commissioner Ismail's recommendation that we do so after the event itself. I think that will be the most timely. In terms of ease of putting on, I mean, I think they can be pretty labor intense. It doesn't mean they're not valuable, but we want to make sure that our work is something that's actually pointed toward results. And that's why when we talk about an event every year, I mean, we really want to know, I think, if there is improvement. We're hoping that there's improvement, and if something isn't working, I would hope then that we would shift something in what we're planning to be a more effective event, rather than just, I think there are people who talk about admiring the problem versus solving the problem. And I think what we're all about is trying to solve the problems. And part of that is making people aware of them, but also pushing for measures and changes that are going to actually resolve things and not keep perpetuating. That, I think, is what has appealed to me about discussing race, justice, policing, and mental health, or policing and mental health, because I think that's a point of intersection that we have seen in other communities that is particularly dangerous. Not always race-based, but that mental illness itself or a mental health crisis can precipitate a contact that does not necessarily end well. And so that is why I've been eager to have that conversation and think that it's timely. What are other resources available to people? We know that other communities are looking at them. So I think in terms of urgency and possibility of impact, that's why I've put an emphasis, or why I see that as being timely and important. Otherwise, I think historically, this body, I think, has both created points of reflection and commemoration within the community, like the days of remembrance, like Juneteenth could be. There's actually some history because some of the families who settled in Edina had Civil War backgrounds. And, you know, which fits with the time that Jim Keith was adopted. But I also take Commissioner Stringer Moore's comments to heart that when you have limited bandwidth and somebody else is stepping forward to take charge of something, then maybe it's best just to participate and not need to be a leader in that. But in any event, that commemoration I think is important. That's also the Tom Moy Award. And while we're emphasizing that, I think it's also important to see where the need is and where this body can have impact in a given year or 2 years. So that's my comment.
Staff Liaison Lee, does the city have already a way that they evaluate events that they hold so that we wouldn't have to reinvent the wheel? Basically, we could take their evaluation and say, okay, we had days of remembrance, we're going to go through these 8 kind of bullet points, or do they not have something like that now, or do you not know?
From my perspective, there isn't anything that provides kind of that, what is that criteria? I think that when there is an establishment of what is successful, I think that is at the decision of the subcommittee.
Sure.
And so that's one of the things when there is a marketing plan that's kind of put in place of what does that look like for as a subcommittee for this event to be successful. And so that's kind of something that the criteria is put on the subcommittee. However, I can see if they're, again, going back to researching to see if there's something like that.
The reason why I ask is because in my short time on this commission, one of the concerns that we've had over and over is evaluating the events that we hold. And I'm wondering if, you know, it says if we don't have maybe the enthusiasm for being in charge of the Juneteenth event, and I don't mean we don't have enthusiasm for the event, I just mean it may not be ours to coordinate, that maybe we want to have an initiative where a few of us go off and say, here's how we want to evaluate HRRC events. I also don't want to give us more work, but I've just heard that concern a lot. You know, how do we take an event and unpack it at the next meeting? And we always do it, and we do it well, but it's in a very, you know, there's no structure to how we're doing that currently. And if we wanted to form, you know, basically an evaluation form or just some sort of way that we have criteria for our events and it's an ongoing thing, but this year would be the year that we form that, and then we can use that going forward. It's just a thought that I've had since it's been a repeated concern. I hate to add.
It's really important, Chair Epstein, because it really moves us from being, you know, optic based into outcome focused. And a lot of times when people do, or organizations doing a lot of events, you think, oh, they do it for the optics, but it's really shifting from optics to the outcome.
Right.
That, I mean, with what they're doing with the Stop the Hate event, really talking about solutions is what we need to do.
Yeah, so it would be something, you know, along those lines. It could be another initiative, but I don't know how. And it could be something we can put in the parking lot because it's more of a study and report. You know, if you keep in mind that at the end of each one of these, we're going to have to decide if it's a 1, a 2, a 3, or a 4. And that to me would definitely be a study and report. But at the very least, I think we should put it in the parking lot, you know, an initiative for evaluating our events. There's got to be a better way to say that. But I think you guys are.
Well, and the quality of life survey.
Impact.
Yeah, the impact, right.
And the quality of life survey is kind of interesting. Done every 2 years. It's been every 2 years since 2011. And it showed this year, Staff Member Lee, please correct me if I'm wrong, but there is some movement in the community. And people, the percentage of people in the community who feel that the community should be welcoming to people from different backgrounds, ethnicities, and that also, so that's expanding. But very interesting, the number, and the government has a role that government can help or should help, has a role in the community being more welcoming, I think was how it was framed. But The question, should it be more welcoming to people of lower income, is stuck below 40%. So we have that current measurement or this measurement this year of how we're doing. And there has been opportunity in the past for but the questions are not identical from year to year. There's a change in, there can be shifts. One cycle, every 2 years can emphasize something above something else. So possibly that might be a way.
Yeah,
to get
that kind of,
more.
yeah. Yeah, I think that's good.
So should we have a work plan item to be involved in how they craft those quality of life questions? Maybe we should get more HRRC oriented questions in that survey. Be interesting to review that.
I think it would be more in the nature of making a request. Staff member Lee, how would we go about that?
I can see what how that process would be. I know that when the quality of life survey is being crafted, we go with a national research company, and they also have a bank of questions that they have used that they're able to compare with other cities. And so in a sense, it's really looking at what are some of the work plans as well as the different initiatives that the city has, and being able to kind of have that consistency with the question bank to be able to have that from every 2 years. And so again, it's definitely crafted by and given input from staff, but I can see what the possibility is to have a commission provide their impact. I mean, with the quality of life survey, it does go from the services provided from the city, built on the four values. So what does that look like to have infrastructure, the services, institution, and also just the fostering inclusivity. So there's kind of all of those different things within that 6-page. And then also there's kind of a, I want to say a hindrance to go more than 6 pages on a quality of life survey as well, too. So kind of just being able to manage all of those moving pieces to it.
And your presentation covered a lot of what I've tried to condense, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So if that link went out to commissioners, they could see your presentation for themselves and the slides that you showed?
Yep.
Oh, yeah, we can, didn't you? I don't know where I got that.
It's on.
Yeah, because I watched it.
They're done it together. Isn't it?
It's the first thing I attended.
Yeah, I'm wondering if I just found it or if it was sent. Well, in the interest of ranking these, which we certainly want to accomplish this evening, I was kind of hearing that the coordinating sharing value sounds, like a heavy favorite for a number one. I mean, would anyone feel that would be a mistake? Commissioner Siegel?
Yeah, Chair Epstein, I don't think it's a mistake. I just wanted to ask a point of clarification on that first initiative, because we talked about at our last meeting, people had lots of good ideas about topics, and we ended up combining them. And right now the language says this event, which focuses on race, justice, policing, and mental health. Did we land on the event would have, I call it a singular focus. It's a broad topic, but that's a singular, quite directed focus. Our event would need to include race, justice, policing, and mental health. As opposed to.
That's a good point. I think it should say or.
I think it's multiple events.
Yeah, I thought we landed on, among these topics,
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, that's a good point.
And I mean, do we want to give us something a little broader, because I know we have to adhere to this work plan. So what if something huge happens with sex trafficking, for example, and then we don't put that in?
But I think that's policing and mental health. I mean, you could almost throw any category under one of these. I mean, anything we're going to come up with is going to fall, because the council doesn't get into the weeds on that. They don't talk about our topics. That's really for the subcommittee. I mean, unless we came up with something that had nothing to do with any of those things, but then I would kind of question that myself anyway. Unless we think it's too narrow and we want to leave it off entirely and just say coordinating, sharing values, sharing communities event.
I think leave it open just to give us.
I agree. I think we
I
should.
know
leave it.
sometimes we think we have something open and then we get tripped up. So
Yeah.
the more breathing room we can give ourselves, the better.
Then the more current we can be. You know, we have to respond, as you pointed out, to whatever's going on in the community. So
Okay.
we
So
need to
maybe
be able to pivot.
And maybe we should have event and then in parentheses and ask for events, you know, if in case we do decide to have more than one, but we're not obligated to it. So, yeah, I think we could change, we could probably change the language. Is that staff liaison, Leon?
Yeah. So what I'm putting down right now and I didn't hear anyone opposing that for number one priority, that will be the very first one, is coordinating, sharing of values, sharing communities event. And in parentheses, it would be S.
Yeah, I mean. And then for number two, I heard both days of remembrance and bias events. I don't have strong feelings on either of those. I don't know if anyone does, if we want to just vote. Again, I don't think that there's a lot of consequences to this order necessarily, so I'm not as concerned as if like we weren't gonna get to do the event. Does anyone want to comment on the order of those? Or do you think something else should be 2 or 3?
I think days of remembrance should be number 2 because of the timing. And I mean, we've been doing that event. It'll be our 11th year.
Yeah.
But because of the timing that it occurs, April, May.
I think that's good. I think it kind of is a good representation of our commission to the community. And then would we do bias offense number 3?
I think that sounds good.
Yeah, I don't see it that.
That's ongoing, right? That's not just a one and done.
Right.
No, well, yes. So the tweaking of the actual plan, there's heavy lifting on certain years, and then there's years like this one coming up where we just did it the prior year. But it's ongoing because of the meeting with the police commissioner quarterly. So we definitely wanted to keep that on council's docket because of that meeting.
Agreed.
It's also important because it's the one concrete thing that this body is offering to people who are experiencing bias and hate in the
The
community.
actual plan.
And so I think linking, I think the ongoing work of making sure that it's the language is accurate and useful. Having just undergone a revision, not proposing a revision, just saying that check-in. But I think also making sure that the community is aware of it and that people feel like they can access it, that the access is easy, and also that there's something that happens when people access it. So that may fit with what people have been saying earlier also about measuring the impact. I mean, we really, I think, do want to know if something positive has come from Stop the Hate, but one way to measure it is, do people feel like this like city government offers them some way to address or resolve?
Yeah, I mean, within the bias defense subcommittee, the placement of where it is on the websites in the city, I mean, it's been a huge discussion with that group, so I agree with you, yeah. And we made some progress there. I think Tom Away is an annual event. I think that holds a lot of weight with our commission. I don't know if anyone would think that would come next at number 4.
I think that would be that was like in my mental list, like that was number 4.
Okay. And then I guess by default, the city naming would be 5. And then if we keep the Juneteenth in our plan, that would fall to 6. Does that sound right?
And then I also do want to add, I know that with the Juneteenth, that there has been conversation within staff members to also plan that as well.
Yeah.
So that is something that staff members are looking at, as well as I know that the arts and culture have been having conversations as well. So not really sure where that will end up as far as if it will be a staff or if it will be something that is on the arts and culture.
Yeah, we haven't really knocked it out of the park with these partnering
Yeah.
endeavors. They've been really hard to achieve.
Commissioner Stringer Moore?
Yeah, I just going back to number one with the sharing value, sharing community. I thought when we had the initial conversation, there was talk about adding, making Stop the Hate a separate initiative so that we could always continue that conversation too. Or did I misunderstand that?
Well, my understanding is it would still fall under, that one, and they can do, so that subcommittee, what we'll want to do is say to them, we feel strongly that the Stop the Hate should be an annual event, but I still think that would fall to the subcommittee unless what you're saying is have initiative number 6 be a Stop the Hate event.
Right, but because that's what I was proposing in my comment. Sorry, that maybe leave sharing value, sharing community, so that we could address a different HR human rights related topic, but to not move the conversation away from these issues of race and policing and justice and hatred, to keep Stop the Hate as its own standalone initiative.
Well, I think, I don't know that it's either way. I think we can do that. It's just where we're putting it. I mean, we can put the Stop the Hate under the sharing value, sharing communities. We can put it as number 6. I think it's up to us that we keep doing it. The thing that I just want to caution everybody about is when you put these in here specifically as initiatives and they go to the council is going to expect that these things happen in the order and the events that they are. Leaving number 1 as more of an open event gives us more flexibility because we can do 2 events, we can do 6. I mean, it doesn't say how many you do. It doesn't say what the topics are. But maybe we want the pressure of saying, no, Stop the Hate specifically. It's important enough to us that we need to do that in addition to anything else we do. And I'm not saying, I don't have an opinion either way.
I would prefer open-ended and put an S in parentheses after events,
Agree.
so we're not specifying a number.
Right.
And which allows us to be responsive. I think Commissioner Edwards said you want to respond to it in the community, which is what we're trying to do this year.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we want some commitment, but some flexibility.
Right. I agree.
So reword the title, comma, Stop the Hate. I mean, put that in there somewhere in the title.
No, I think what Joni said was great. Events,
Yeah, events for sure. And then measurements to make sure that we have some follow-up and some follow-on events that pick up on what we learn, right? There has to be a feedback loop here somewhere that says politicians said they're going to go act on this. We're going to hold them accountable, 3 months later with another event. Come back and tell us what you did. And if you want to put Stop the Hate somewhere in the title, just to ensure that it's one of the guaranteed events, that would be okay.
I think we could do a for example, but again, if we list the exact topics and or titles, then we're making a commitment.
We're trapped. Yeah.
One thing that I do want to point out is that there is a portion of that under the next spot, which is a deliverable, right? So as you're thinking of what the plan is, to be very specific of what that deliverable looks like, because if you are saying events, you want to give yourself some broad leeway of what that event is to be responsive, and also thinking about from the Stop the Hate event, that in itself is starting to brand itself too, right? So you don't want also that confusion if you're starting to connect it with sharing values, sharing communities, and then it's starting to be then its own separate event. And I think that, when you start getting to that point, There could be, you know, there could be some folks from the community that are like, well, you just had the sharing values, sharing communities. And then they're saying, oh, no, but that was Stop the Hate event. So I want you to all consider that if you are wanting to have, you know, where this, the Stop the Hate event is going to be something that is continuous, that it has its own, like, in a sense, kind of significance or just like more awareness when it comes to the community. Just like the Sharing Values, Sharing Communities event has had multiple different topics. So those are the things to consider when you are crafting that deliverable as well, because that's something that council will want to know what that is.
Right, but until we've had the event
Mhm.
and we've evaluated it, like Commissioner Israel said, I would be a little hesitant to just brand it, you know what I mean?
Right,
I mean, I
right.
think it's gonna go great,
I mean,
but
when
I get exactly what you're saying.
I hate to think that we're going to have 20 years of Stop the Hate events. Do you know what I mean? There's something so horrible about not being able to conquer this and to not have a more positive. I understand Stop the Hate for this event.
Yeah, I think that's the advantage of
continue to
keeping
bring
it
that.
general. Honestly.
Yeah.
Oh, I see, she's, her things out. You broke up a little bit on us there, Cindy.
That's okay. For some reason, looks like my Wi-Fi is frozen. Can you hear me?
Yeah. We can hear you now, yeah.
It's such a negative brand. I mean, I understand we need to do it for the next X number of events, but I would hate for that to be a permanent brand.
Commissioner Siegel?
I really liked how Commissioner Bennett phrased it, and I wonder if I can just say, coordinate sharing values, sharing community event, you put in paren and S, including, for example, continuing the Stop the Hate event, as well as, you know, events on topics such as race, justice, and policing. And I mean, it's just wordsmithing I'm doing, but the idea of keeping it broad, allowing us to be flexible to events that happen in the world, and respecting Commissioner Ishmael's point that, you know, maybe it'll be a dud and we don't ever want to do it again, although I don't think that's the case. So I think if we crafted it the way I just articulated it, building on Commissioner Bennett's language, it gives us the flexibility with accountability. You know, it's such as, and I do think it should be part of coordinating sharing values, sharing communities, and not stand alone, at least not yet.
And also knowing that you will be meeting again next month, and
Right.
you will
Same thing.
have the data to be able to say, this is how many people were in attendance. So you do have one more meeting to kind of solidify what you will be proposing to council for your 22 work plan.
And we made great progress with the order this
Mhm.
evening. The only thing that I feel we haven't totally resolved is that number 6 with the Juneteenth. Does that sound like something we're gonna take off before we meet again next month?
I don't know. I actually kind of like the idea of doing a Juneteenth event. I feel like as a Human Rights and Relations Commission, our involvement in that would be super, I think.
And I also feel like if we're like collaborating with arts and culture, it's not a full work plan item in terms of work effort there. So I know we're like concerned about having too much on our plates, but I think if it's like a dual commission item, it wouldn't harm us at all. And also, it's such an important thing for the city to recognize that I don't see a harm in it.
I wonder if we should just say partner with, you know, because if it's the city staff that's doing it instead of the arts, and, you know, we don't know who's gonna be hosting it or holding it, we just feel we should have a part in it. Does that seem accurate?
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think that we definitely should have some sort
You
of.
know, so have maybe input,
Collaborate
I just had a
with-
question. Is it only Juneteenth, or will you guys also want to maybe do something for other, I would guess, minority-based holidays?
Mhm.
So that's just my question.
I think this one was specifically Juneteenth because this is the first year it was recognized by Edina, right? I think that was the reasoning
Well, we
behind.
made a federal
Yeah.
holiday for the first time.
Right.
I think the other thing about Juneteenth is when you think about the ways that July 4 is celebrated by levels of government, and I know it's privately, you know, that foundation funded, but it's just such a big deal in different communities. And I think the historical recognition of this other date and the history, to me, the history is so important around it. And it's an opportunity to tell that history, not just a static celebration, but actually an opportunity for people to understand, particularly when there's so much pushback on understanding.
So maybe it would be more that we want to like provide input on the Juneteenth event.
I would say maybe collaborate.
Yeah, or collaborate with.
Swart's earlier point, we don't have a good track record of joint initiatives with other commissions for whatever reason. And there does seem to be a lot of community interest around Juneteenth. So it'd be nice to be able to, you know, provide feedback, but I don't think we need to lead the initiative.
Well, we got to keep in mind then that we'll need a lead for that. We'll need 3 or 4 commissioners for that. There are going to be a number of meetings to be held for that. So keep that in mind that people need to populate that with their names. All 6 of these.
And one thing that I do want to add, and I know Commissioner Stringer Moore is also part of the committee that is planning the Yancey Park rededication. And that is actually with staff members that are kind of leading that. And so there is a commissioner from the Parks and Rec Commission as well as providing feedback. So the initial thought from staff was to, with the Juneteenth event is really, what does that logistically look like as far as planning and then getting community feedback. So that's what the staff are considering with that planning event. So it's not necessarily, you know, staff led, but it's getting that feedback. So I think it's figuring out who is interested in wanting to partner, provide feedback similar to what Commissioner Stringer Moore is doing for the Yancey Park dedication.
So yeah, I think that's a good weekly on that initiative. So I'm meeting weekly with that group.
Well, I would say that we should go back, take the next month, look over, you know, the order of the initiatives that we ranked. Think about how you think we should be involved possibly with the Juneteenth event. We think we can rework that. You know, we can rework how we phrase the sharing values. Reese will send that out to all of us, and then we can kind of look that over. But I think for now, we made probably a good amount of progress. Does that sound right?
Yeah, just let me recap. So what I have for initiative 1 is coordinating sharing values, sharing communities event. For example, Stop the Hate, Race Justice and Policing is what I have. And then for 2 is coordinate the Days of Remembrance. And then for 3, it is the bias offense. And so what that is on the bias offense, excuse me. Bias offense and incident response review plan and meet with police department representative on a quarterly basis. That is number 3. Number 4 then is the Tom Oy Award. And then number 5 is the renaming policy. And then I have for number 6 is collaborate Juneteenth event, or are we just placing that on hold?
I think for the month we should leave it, you know.
Okay. What I'll do is I'll put that in the parking lot so that you're able to take a look at that. So that's what we'll have.
Yeah, two questions. So for the Yancey Park rededication, is it possible to work within the structure of a task force that might involve other members of the community and not require involvement of community members, so many commission members who are working on other things? So just a suggestion with respect possibly to Juneteenth and possibly to the Yancey Park dedication. And then the other comment that I wanted to make is just to let the commission know that I have located, so a naming policy was worked on, not through a DEI lens, although that was, I think, one of the points that was raised, but there was fairly extensive work done in 2013 and 2014, early 2014, and I've located some of the drafts of that and can probably locate resources.
Oh, no. Now, was that done through here?
Yes,
Oh,
it was the park board. It was done through the park
Oh,
board.
park board,
and
not HR.
It's a working group of the park board and brought to council.
Okay, so the park board. Okay, good.
Yeah, I'll get clarification on the Juneteenth planning. As far as the Yancey dedication, that is actually set for October 7th, or I'm sorry, different meeting.
October 4th.
October 4th, yes, thank you. October 4th.
That's the Yancey Park dedication.
And that will be held from 4:30 until 5:30.
And then I believe highly regular update.
So I just wanted to give an update as far as the meeting location for the September, October, and November meetings. And so just to be cautionary, as well as providing people opportunities to have more social distancing, because in September you are moving to in-person meetings. We are actually changing the meeting locations to the multi-purpose room at the Public Works Building. So for September, October, and November, the meeting will be at Public Works in the multi-purpose room. The meeting time will still be at 7 o'clock because those will be in-person meeting. There was a public notice that was already sent out to let all of the community know, because in addition to the HRC, all of the commissions are actually moving to Public Works.
Do you have the address?
Yep, I can send that out.
It's on Metro, right? Is that Metro
Yes,
near?
it is on Metro Boulevard.
Thanks. I'm back.
Yay. Let's see here.
Do they think that's a safer environment with a larger venue? Is
Yes.
that the reason? Okay.
Yep.
Heidi, I have the address if you want it.
Oh, yeah, that would be perfect.
7450 Metro Boulevard, Edina, NN 55439.
Thank you. And then we will be putting another notice for the December meeting. The December meeting will be here at City Hall. And that's due to the fact that the Tom Oy Award presentation is the very same night. So I'm trying to see what does that look like logistically for the December meeting. So I haven't figured out the full details of that yet, but you will be made aware once it's been figured out. That's all I have.
Okay, we'll move on to chair and member comments. I'll go from the screens here. Commissioner Edwards.
Sorry about the power failure, but I came back up. No comments. I have a GFI that failed because of the storm. So unfortunately, I plugged into that outlet and my laptop ran out. So sorry about that, guys.
No
Hope
worries.
I didn't miss much. It's bad for an engineer to have a problem with technology. That's not good. So.
Commissioner Ismail, do you have any comments?
No, no comment, thanks.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Guadarrama?
No.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Stringer-Moore?
Staff liaison touched on my comment about the Yancey Park dedication taking place on October 4th with the public event beginning at 4:30 from 5:30. I know that council member James Pierce and former HRC commissioner, her last name is escaping me, Jessie
Kingston.
They have been invited to speak because they were a part of the Racial Equity Task Force. So they will be speaking at the dedication, and I believe the mayor will be providing remarks also. But it should be a great event. So please save the date on your calendar. And then just one other community event. The next time I receive it, I will make sure I forward it to staff liaison Lee to share with the commission, but the ARC Anti-Racism Collective is putting out a monthly newsletter, and they're already promoting the Stop the Hate event, but they're sharing things around race and equity in that newsletter. So you might want to get on that mailing list, and I'll share it with the commission.
You said that was at 4:30 for Yancey?
4:30 on October 4th.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Felton?
Nothing, thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Ross?
Nothing tonight.
Thank you. Commissioner Siegel?
Yeah, thanks, Jeffstein. Commissioner Bennett can add, we both serve on the League of Women Voters Racial Justice Action Committee, and we have a number of upcoming events. I'll let Commissioner Bennett speak to the one coming up September 9th, I think it is. And then we have two on October 14th. Our morning event is going to be in connection with Indigenous Peoples Day. And Senator Kunish is going to be speaking about Indigenous people and voting rights. And then in the evening, Dr. Ellen Kennedy will be speaking about felony disenfranchisement, which we spoke about a little bit at our last meeting. And I had mentioned the league was taking on the topic, at least from an educational perspective. And she'll be talking about felony disenfranchisement and then the implications nationally as a state and then locally. So the league continues to do really good work as it relates to racial justice. And I am happy, Commissioner Stringer Moore, to hear also more about the Anti-Racism Collective and then the work we're doing. And you hope all of these pieces will come together, you know, and help move our community forward. And briefly, the league is also doing a study this year to look at the level of kind of inclusiveness among Edina organizations, in particular nonprofits, and the level of diversity and whether people do feel welcomed. So again, another, I think, good effort to help our community move forward.
Thank you. Commissioner Bennett?
Thank you. So the event that Commissioner Siegel was referring to, the first one is coming up the morning of Thursday, September 9th. That will be in council chambers, but also via Zoom, open to all league meetings and events are open to the public. And the speakers will be Heidi Lee and MJ Lehman on the city's new policy of renouncing discriminatory covenants. And we're working on a question of whether or not we will videotape that for later viewing. So again, Thursday, September 9th, 10 a.m., 10 to 11:30 a.m. In October, as Commissioner Siegel mentioned, the voting rights and Indigenous people in the morning on October 14th, Thursday, October 14th, evening, voting rights and felon disenfranchisement, and both of those will be completely virtual. So there will be no in-person audience, but again, anybody is welcome to request the link who is not a league member. And then we also have Dr. Stacy Stanley speaking. She is participating in the Stop the Hate event that the HLC is hosting. The league has asked her to have an entire event to herself on Wednesday, November 10th from 7 to 8:30 p.m. in council chambers. And that also will be live via Zoom. And then I wanted to encourage people who are willing and comfortable on the HRC to volunteer to help on Sunday, September 12th. There will be, I'm sure, more than enough setup and greeting roles to fill. And so we would really appreciate the help of anyone who's willing to come to City Hall. We'll be setting up probably from about 1:30 on for that 3 o'clock event on Sunday, September 12th. Thank you.
Student Commissioner Mirza?
Nope, nothing for me.
Nope.
Okay. Staff comments.
I do have one. You may have noticed on the minutes that for this meeting, or the last meeting, that on the staff comment section and on the chair and commission section, that it now says just received. Staff has been directed, we no longer will type out like your actual comments. If someone wants to hear what was said, they would have to go online, watch and hear the audio. We've been directed to no longer type those out. So you'll see that change moving forward, that it'll just say received on there.
And then the only comment I have is that Dr. Stanley will be attending the December HRC meeting.
Oh,
Great.
interesting.
And she will be the first presentation on that particular agenda. So she'll be talking about her vision and then also ways that you may be able to partner with her in that meeting as well. So I said probably 20 to 30 minutes.
Perfect. That's great. And that just reminds me that if anybody has people that they would like to bring in to speak to our group, as long as it pertains to one of the topics that we're discussing in our work plan, I would encourage you to do so. And then Heidi and I can get you some dates that we can get that speaker. So if you know somebody, that'd be great. Can have a motion for adjournment? Commissioner Siegel, second. Commissioner Stringer Moore. Roll call, please.
Chair Epstein,
Aye.
Commissioner Ismail,
Aye.
Commissioner Ross,
Aye.
Commissioner Felton,
Aye.
Commissioner Bennett,
Aye.
Commissioner Siegel, Commissioner Edwards,
Aye.
Commissioner Guadarrama,
Aye.
Commissioner Stringer Moore,
Aye.
motion carries.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.
Good night.
Good.